Hello everybody, good afternoon, how are we doing? Hello Ella, just posted hello in the chat. Right then, good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon's session for National University Week. My name's Heather, I'm from CareerMap, and here I'm joined by Louise Carr from the University of Liverpool. So Louise is going to talk to you about how to choose the right university and course, and also then how to apply. So as the presentation is being talked through, you're going to have questions. So please ask them in the chat box on the right hand side. Ryan and Ella have already found that chat box, and so has Adam. But that's where you can find it. And what we'll do is after Louise's presentation, we'll do like a Q&A at the end of the session. A reminder as well that the session is being recorded, so don't worry about missing out on anything. It will be emailed to you next week. But if you need anything immediately, I would just recommend taking a screenshot of something on your phone. Lots of lovely people saying hello. I think really I should just take the opportunity to disappear and let you listen to what Louise has got to say here. And I'll be joining you again for the questions.
Lovely, thank you very much for the introduction, and hello everyone. I can see lots of people saying hello in the chat, so that's lovely. Now, this presentation, as you can probably guess from the heading, is going to be providing you with lots of advice about you researching your options and then in preparation for you to apply to university later on. So as we go through, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat for me, and I will stop after I've delivered the first part of this presentation. So after the course and university advice, I will pause a minute, have a quick look to see if there are any repeat questions there that urgently need addressing, and then I'll move on to the how to apply, and then I'll look at the rest of your questions as well. So thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope you actually make the most of the opportunity by asking questions as we go. So just to start off, so I'm from the University of Liverpool, but the information that I'm going to provide to you is going to be relevant for whichever university you end up applying to. So I want to give you some general advice and tips so that you can find both the right course and indeed the right university for you, because your experience and your success at university will greatly depend on these two things. Because there's lots of different universities out there offering all sorts of different courses. So you might end up wanting to choose to do something that perhaps is more artistic or performance related. It could be very scientific. It could be very much based on your future career as well. So you need to do lots of research. So you've still got time now, so make the most of it. And I'll be sharing some resources with you just to follow up this session later on as well. Just to start off, when you're trying to work out which course is the right one for you, I suggest that you focus on these three areas. Firstly, that it's going to be something that you will actually enjoy. Most university courses are between 3 and 5 years long, so that's quite a lot of time to be dedicating your life to actually doing your university studies. Then make sure it's something that you have an interest in. And don't just assume from the title of a course that it will probably be okay. Do a bit of extra research, look at university websites, just to delve beyond the title of the course to find out, what sort of modules, what do you actually study in first, second and third year? Is the opportunity for field trips, industry placements? How is it assessed? How is it taught? You need to make sure this particular course really suits you. So utilise university websites to get as much information as you possibly can. Secondly, if you do have a particular career in mind, do some research to find out which university course and indeed place will actually set you up for that. Now, a great variety of different professions later on in life, you don't need to particularly have a particular course qualification, but quite often it is useful to do something in that area. So if you do have a clear idea about what you want to do later on, do some research. If you're not really sure what you want to do as a career later on, don't worry too much. Graduate employers will recognise all the skills and things that you've learnt during pretty much any degree programme. So don't get too het up on the idea of trying to work out what you want to do in your future life beyond university if you're not quite sure as yet. So beyond choosing something that you enjoy and will perhaps set you up for your dream career, the third and really crucial thing is to look at the entry requirements. So all of the admissions requirements that universities set up. because there's really no point in applying for courses if you don't have the right subject background, or perhaps you've not completed the correct work experience and so forth. So I just want to give you a few ideas of the sorts of things to look for on university websites regarding the admissions requirements for courses. Because even though lots of different universities will offer courses that sound very similar, what they're asking for regarding admissions can be very, very different. So have a look to see what we're looking for on our websites. So have a look at, what are the grades, what are the qualifications, are there particular subject requirements in there as well that we're actually asking for? And also, are there specific types of work experience that are crucial that you have completed before you apply? Now, at Liverpool, we have quite a few clinical courses. So if you're wanting to go onto our vets course, it's really important that you've got experience of working with animals. So we do set our requirements quite high there. But for lots of other courses, particular types of work experience perhaps aren't necessary, but can still be useful. So it might be that we're looking for someone who has really good communication skills. And we're happy to look at all the different experiences that you've had where you've developed those skills. So it could be from a part-time job, it could be from doing some mentoring work at school, being involved with volunteer organisations, being parts of sport clubs. There's lots of ways that you can pick up sort of transferable skills. So even though perhaps you're going to be applying to be a geographer later on, by talking about your communication skills that you've developed as being part of the rugby team, it can actually showcase to us that you've got good communication skills, which you can then apply to being a good student of ours. Now, competitive courses will quite often have extra requirements beyond what you're putting down on your UCAS application form, and I will be talking more about the application process later. But some of these additional things could be an interview, an audition for something like music, perhaps. Architecture at Liverpool, we ask for a portfolio. And for some courses, you might need to do an extra test as well. So do some research to find out what you need to do and also when, so that you have enough time to actually prepare a fantastic portfolio, or perhaps to do some research to find out what does the LNET test actually take up part of. So do some lots of research to find out exactly what's required, so that can actually then lead you into choosing the right course and to apply for a course that you've got a good chance of actually getting into. So once you've perhaps done your research and worked out what subject you might like to study at university, you then need to try and find the right place for you. And for some of you, you might be wanting to study a subject that's really popular. So perhaps maths or business management or physics. They're taught at lots of places. So you're going to have to try and narrow down your options. So here's some of the things that I think that you should think about when finding the right university for you. First off, think of the geography. Now, do you want to stay close to home, or are you feeling a little bit more adventurous? Do you want to go to the other part of the country? Do you want to go to a big city, or would you rather go to a more rural location? So you need to find that place that's right for you. Secondly, do some research to find out about options like industry placements or field work. So my background is archaeology and classical history. So of course, part of my degree program was actually going on some excavations. So that's a really important and crucial part of my enjoyment of my course. So do some work to find out, do you have field trips, whether that's a literal field or perhaps you're wanting to go into accountancy, do you get the opportunity to go to like a business placement or something like that? And of course, each university will have links with different places. Now, some of you might benefit from having additional support at university. University can be quite an independent experience, something quite different to perhaps what you've experienced at school, but there's still a lot of support available for you. You just need to ask. So if you think you would benefit from having some additional support, contact universities in advance just to have a chat with them. Then you're going to be really confident that they're going to be able to put together a package that will provide you with enough support to be happy and successful at university. Now, even though I'm working at the University of Liverpool, you can probably gather from my accent, I'm not from the Northwest, so I'm originally from down in Brighton, and the South Coast is lovely, but often it's a little bit more expensive. So have a think about the cost of living. Different parts of the country, your student loans will stretch further than others. So do a bit of research to look at how much it's going to cost you to actually live in the place where you're thinking of studying. Now, university open days are a fantastic opportunity for you to look at things like sports and social facilities, just so that you get that work and life balance right, but also all of the facilities like libraries and so forth as well. You might also like to think about what type of university you're going to go to. So one of the words that's often used to describe a type of university is the Russell Group, and it's quite often referred to in the media. So the Russell Group are 24 universities, which I've listed on the screen here. And even though we are all separate institutions, which we offer different subjects, our admissions requirements will be different, the places that we're based in can be quite different as well. We're all sort of bound together by the common themes of having lots of researchers doing original work. So that's what we've really based our reputation on having these original researchers. And also, of course, having fantastic links to the world of business and industry. So quite often we're able to offer you lots of industry placements and so forth. So you might be thinking you might like to go to a Russell Group university. Now, I did say I wanted to share a few resources with you. Now, this session today is actually done in association with CareerMap, so you've possibly already had a look at their website. So please do go and have a look through all of their different search facilities so you can try and find the right course for you. But I also want to highlight a few other places for you to get extra information from as well. So one of them is What Uni. That's whatuni.com/degrees/courses. So they've got a couple of useful little quizzes that you can do on that page. So if you go to that page, you can then tab down a bit further and find these. So one of these is if you're struggling to work out what to study, what you can do is you can put down the qualifications you're currently doing. So you can put down what subjects you're already studying, and then they'll show you the results of what other students have done who actually studied the same subjects as you. So I did this for myself. So I did at A-level history, classics, and English literature. And perhaps unsurprisingly, English and classics come up as the top 2 results. But the third most popular one for people who did the same subjects as me was actually law. So this really highlights that there are some degree programs that actually don't mind what subjects you've done before. So you don't have to have studied law quite often in order beforehand to do that at university. So it gives you a bit of an idea. It might open up some extra alternatives for you and options for you to investigate. If you do have a particular career in mind, the What University website, the same page, also has a little quiz for you to help you find about what course might be the right thing to set you up for your future career. So in this little form, you can put in that you want to do a particular profession. So I've put a very specialised thing in here. I've put that I want to be an optician. And perhaps unsurprisingly, overwhelmingly, people tend to do a degree program based on ophthalmics in order to get into that profession. If you were to put in something like marketing, you'd actually get quite a different result, because quite a lot of people do have a marketing or business degree beforehand, but you'll also see in the results with this sort of quiz all sorts of other degree programs as well, because people will pick up lots of transferable skills that can also then be used in a marketing profession later on. Now, if you've worked out what subject you want to do, you want to find out, well, who offers this subject, I think the UCAS website is a fantastic one to go and have a look at. They've got all of their 2023 courses updated on their website now. So if you go onto the UCAS website, you actually then can sign up and create your own little portal, so you can then save things, which is really useful. So if you do a search and say you want to find out who offers history, you'll get a lot of results coming back. But you can then sort of click on the little hearts there, create favourite lists, which you can then have a look at later on. And there's lots of useful links that will take you to the university websites and also to chat rooms where you can actually speak to current students as well. So that's a really useful resource to go and have a look at, just to help you find the right place for you. As part of their search tool, you can also add in lots of little filters. So that's really useful. So if you've put in something like history, you'll get lots of results. So you can actually put in so when you want to start the course, if you want to do it full-time, part-time. You can also add extra filters about how far do you want to travel away from home. So there's lots of things you can put in which will then add lots of filters and help you to narrow down your choices. Okay, so I've put a few links up on the screen, some of the ones that I've mentioned there. Just a few extras that I mentioned there as well. There's often opportunities to go to university open days, and I have spotted a couple of questions in the chat as it's listed along the side. So Will has asked about how good are virtual open days. They often can be really good for you to do your initial research, just to find out a bit more about the course content and can you do study abroad, where's accommodation, and all those sorts of things. So virtual open days can be fantastic in helping you to do some of your research. But as Will says, would I recommend going to visit the university? Yes, absolutely. Virtual things are fantastic, but there's no real substitute for actually going and seeing the place in person, because quite often, once you get there, you get a bit of a sense of what the campus is like, what the city is like. You get to speak to some current students, perhaps spend the night over as well, explore what all the options are available locally, and you'll get a sense of whether the place actually feels right for you or not. And I know that's what we often ask at our open days is, why did you choose Liverpool? And quite often I came to an open day and it just felt like the right place for me as well. Okay, so please do continue putting your questions in the chat and we will sort of summarise those at the end. So now moving on to the second part of the presentation. So this is focusing more on how to actually apply. So you've done your research, you've hopefully narrowed down your options about what you want to study and where, how you actually go about applying to university. Well, I'll start off with letting you know some of the key dates that we have to keep in mind. So most of you, I would imagine, will be in this early research phase. So you're looking at prospectuses, going to events, perhaps doing some activities at school, hopefully looking at books and journal articles, perhaps organising work experience as well. So you're in that research phase, trying to work out who to apply to. Now, if you're interested in dentistry, medicine, veterinary science, Oxford or Cambridge, please be aware that your deadline for applying to university is, for this year anyway, 15th of October. So that's not much time once you get back from your summer holidays and get back into school or college to actually complete your application. So if you're thinking of applying to any of these, you really need to get your act together sort of a bit quicker and actually start putting together some early drafts of your application as soon as you can, really, so that you can get some advice from your teachers. So you've got that October deadline for those early entry courses. Now, most other courses, the deadline will be the 25th of January 2023. So always double check the small print to find out when your deadline is, but most of the time it will be either in October or January. And also do keep in mind that because your teachers at school will want to help you with drafts, quite often they will put in earlier deadlines for you just so they can help you on your way. So when you're doing your research, and I mentioned before, look for things about perhaps extra tests or auditions. Have a look to see when those are as well so that you can fit those into your timeline, because you don't want to then all of a sudden find out, oh, I need to do an audition next week and you don't have much time to practice. So make sure you double check university websites, find out what all the requirements are and also when you have to complete these things by. So after you've initially applied, and I will go into more detail about what the application consists of in a moment, once you've initially applied, hopefully you get lots of offers back and you then need to make a decision in either May, June or July. The deadline date will change depending when you receive your offers from universities. So double check that small print. Because even though you apply to 5 courses in the first place in October or January, you can't keep hold of all 5 of those. You have to narrow them down to your top 2, your firm and your insurance choice. So that will be in May, June or July that you have to finalise that decision. Then we steam ahead to August, and that's when all your results come out, where universities can hopefully confirm your place, and then you start university in October. So what happens if you don't actually get any offers back? So when you've applied in October or January, and maybe you've made a mistake in your application, or you've only applied for courses that you're not really qualified for, there is a second chance. It's something called UCAS Extra, and that's usually open between May and July. So if need be, there is a second chance where you can put in one more application if you need to. But my advice is to do your research properly the first time round so that you can apply in October or January with a really sure idea about what you want to do later on. So when you're initially applying, so whether that's October or the January deadline, it's all done via an online form on UCAS website. So the benefit of doing this is that you can do it in bits and pieces and save it as you go, but also it means that you can track it later on, so you can see when it's been completed, when it's been sent to universities, and when we've made decisions as well. So when you're initially applying, you're applying for up to 5 courses. So that's what the spaces are on your form. So you don't have to put them in any order at that point. The only difference is if you're applying for medicine, dentistry or veterinary, because those are highly competitive courses, and there will be some students with fantastic applications who, simply because it's so competitive, don't get an offer. We have to limit it to just 4. What I do recommend, though, is you still use your 5th option and you put something down that's perhaps not quite as competitive. So perhaps a biological research subject. So it's still related to the theme of what you want to study, but perhaps it's not quite as competitive. And there is an application fee. So if you only want to apply for one course, then it's £22.50 at the moment, or up to 5, it's 27. So I think really it's probably worth going for the £27 route, because then you get all 5 options there. So what do you actually need to put on your form? Well, the application form is divided up into lots of little sections, so I've listed some of them here. It's pretty straightforward to put all this information in. Things that I'd really want to pinpoint, though, is putting down your education history. It's really important that you put all correct information in there. So if you're doing a slightly unusual qualification, don't guess what the A-level equivalent is and just put that in. You need to put the exact title of what it is that you're studying, so that when we at university see your application, we know what it is that you've studied and we can judge that fairly. You also need to put down your employment history, if you have any, a personal statement, which I'll go into more detail in just a moment, and also a reference from school. So do try to ask around at school or college to find out who is going to be putting your reference together. Make friends with them, rebuild bridges if you need to, because the more that they know you and know about your application, the more personalised and probably the better the reference can be. So hopefully they'll be able to support all the things that you're talking about yourself in your own personal statement, so they'll be able to support that in the reference. And also, if they have your permission, teachers can also put a bit of extra information about you in their reference. So for example, if you were very ill during your GCSEs, for example, and one of your results wasn't particularly good, but you're doing the similar subject at A-level and you're doing fantastically at it, your teacher can put that into context so we can understand your application a little bit better, because we can see all the qualifications that you enter into the application form. But if there are any discrepancies with, perhaps you were borderline failing it in your GCSEs, but suddenly getting A stars now, without that explanation in the teacher's reference, we might be a little bit confused. But if they have your permission, your teachers can actually put a bit of extra context in there and help us make sense of the application itself. Okay. If you want extra information about the application form itself, again, please do look at the UCAS website. There's lots of information on there, including a few videos as well. Now, the personal statement, that's one of the large parts of the application form that you need to create yourself. So it's a piece of work that you need to put together. You can get input from other people, of course, but it's really important that it's your own original work. Now, quite often I do get asked, is the personal statement important? How was it used? Well, as with many things, the same as with admissions requirements or course content, each university and indeed each course can be a little bit different. So the safe answer is to say, yes, it is important, because it gives us in universities a bit more information about you. Because quite often, this will be the only time we actually get to hear your voice. Now, at Liverpool, we do a broad range of different subject areas, but we only interview for some of them, so like those clinical and sort of NHS type professional courses. For lots of our courses, and indeed other universities in the same position, we don't interview. So the personal statement is an opportunity for you to tell us why you think you deserve a place on our course. However, if you are interviewed, there is a good chance that you might be asked something about the content of your personal statement in the interview. So if you do get an interview, reread through your entire application, refresh your mind, so that if you talk about a particular book or a work experience that you found really valuable, make sure you refresh your mind about what it is that you did, what you learned from that experience, what you did next to learn more about it as well, because quite often in an interview, we want to know a little bit more about you, and a personal statement is often a good springboard for that. But hopefully your personal statement will include examples that will help us to differentiate your application from everyone else's, because of course your examples should be unique to yourself. So here are the absolute basics of what you need to know about the personal statement. It's a formal part of this application and it is character limited as well. So you have 4,000 characters or 47 lines of text, whichever comes first. And you only write the one personal statement. So what is actually makes it easier for you is to do your research early so that you are just talking about why you want to study chemistry, because it will make writing this personal statement much easier if you're all focusing about what you've learned about chemistry, why you want to do it, and the next steps, and perhaps in the career, what you want to do. If you've not really worked out what it is you want to do and you're trying to apply for chemistry, but also physiotherapy and architecture or something, you're going to have to break your personal statement up into different mini sections. And in each little section, you're going to have to say about how you really want to study this subject, but you also want to really study this other subject. So if you're not really convinced, you're not really going to convince us either. So if at all possible, try to do your research early, so that you are talking about why you want to study this subject area. So the courses that you're applying to, those 5 courses you're applying to, have that common theme. And because it's a formal application, things like your spelling, punctuation, and grammar do need to be correct. So what sort of content do you need for the personal statement? Well, and this is a theme as I'm talking along, each university can ask for different things for different subject areas. So for example, what we at Liverpool will look for in an application for an architecture or an archaeology student will be quite different to what we're looking for in a vet or a philosophy student. So look at university websites and make the most of university open days as well, and any opportunity to engage with university staff, whether that's in person at events, whether you visit them or perhaps someone from that university visits you at school. If you can't get that information personally, send an email as well. You can say, I've had a look at your human geography course on your website. It looks really interesting. I really want to apply. What do you want me to put in my personal statement? So if you send that information out to the universities that you're applying to and going to be putting on your form, you should then be able to include information in your personal statement that's actually relevant. So not the information that you think we want to know, it's actually information that we do want to know. But in essence, the content needs to explain why you want to study that subject. So your enthusiasm for that subject really needs to run through the entire statement. Occasionally, we do see some applications where they'll say at the very start of their application that they really want to study accountancy, and then don't mention anything to do with accountancy for the rest of the application. They talk about their skills, but they don't actually link it back to how that skill would make them a good accountant, for example. So detail the things that you've done to learn more about that subject area. If it's a vocational course, tell us about what you've done to learn more about that profession as well. And always use those examples and give us details as well. Because remember, the details and your examples will what be making your application stand out over other people's. So I've mentioned a few times including examples. Well, what sort of things that you can actually talk about? What sort of skills and experiences might you need to have proof that you actually have them? There's all sorts of things that we might ask for, whether it's communication skills, organisational skills, insight into patient care, the importance of education and so forth. So have a think about all the different activities and things that you've taken part in, and think about what did you learn from that occasion? How has that influenced your decision into wanting to study that subject? And have you gathered useful skills to be successful as a student or a professional in that subject area? So whether it's extra reading that you've done on your own, so additional work, that's always useful. Not things that you've had to do as part of your coursework. That's not very impressive. Things that you've actually done off your own initiative, that's a much better thing to put inside. If you've been involved with any organised activities like Duke of Edinburgh Awards, part-time work, mentoring, volunteer work, sports societies, think about all the different things that you've been involved with, and then focus on your skills and experiences and link them to how that would actually prepare you to be a really good student. Now, we do know that the last couple of years have been a little bit tricky for various reasons to get some in-person activities. There's lots of virtual stuff available out there as well. One of those is the Future Learn website. They have lots of short online courses. So that will help you get a better sense of perhaps what studying psychology is really like. So that's a really useful website to go and have a look at, the Future Learn website. And if you're still looking for work experience opportunities, there's one called Do It Life. So that's a website to go on to find out about opportunities for you doing work experience. And you can filter it to show only online activity or to show things you can do in person within a certain radius of your address. So I now have a list of some top do's and top do nots for putting your personal statement together. So the top one is absolutely do take advice from reliable sources of information, of course. So check with universities, because do remember that our courses and what we offer and what we're looking for can change year on year. So it's really important that you get up-to-date information. Use uncomplicated sentences and don't bog yourself down with too much jargon. Okay, so sometimes there's the temptation for students to try and sound like a fully fledged academic, and they use lots of jargon and overly flowery language. That's really not necessary. Remember, this is character limited, so you do need to get to the point. So it could be that you have way too many characters and you need to be quite strict with yourself and start really cutting down on your words. Get rid of any filler words like moreover and furthermore. Get rid of words like that, save yourself from characters. And quite often, if you don't start a sentence with something like furthermore, it actually makes what you're sounding a little bit more confident, because in saying furthermore I've done this, you're simply saying I have done this. It's much more direct and to the point. Do you have a clear structure? Grammar, punctuation, they're very important as well, because do remember, a human person has to actually read this later on to get some sense out of it, so make it easy for us. Give lots of evidence that you know what the course is about. Mention career aspirations if you do have them. Please don't make them up if you don't as yet. Include those examples, so the prestige doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's voluntary or paid for. It's the quality of the experience and how you're able to discuss that experience in your personal statement. That's important. So make the most of what you've done, but always make it relevant to what you're applying to. Set yourself a schedule and expect to revise and edit your work several times. Then we have my top please do nots. Please do not say, I've always wanted to study classics at the University of X. Remember, you could be applying to 5 different universities and we all read that same personal statement. So please don't tell us that we're not your favourite. Also, especially if you're wanting to do a vocational course, please don't say that I want to study this because my aunt is a specialist surgeon, and leave it at that. Relying on the experience and perhaps the privileges of members of your family is not really a valid thing to put in your personal statement. We want to know what it is that you have done and what you have learned from it. So don't just say, I want to do this because my mum does it. Tell us all the other things that you've learned about it and what has actually drive you on to make sure to make that choice for yourself. Because remember, it's you studying the course, not your mum or your aunt or your father. Please don't put in a dictionary definition. Perhaps unsurprisingly, we understand what our courses are about. We're wanting to find out from you what you particularly enjoy and what you want to do as part of your course. One block of text is very difficult to read as well, so make sure you break it up into paragraphs. Certainly do not steal ideas from elsewhere and try and pass them off as your own. You might have read a long list of books, for example, but don't just list them and leave it at that. That doesn't really prove to us that you've actually read them. Just pick up a couple of the best examples and give us a bit more context so that we're convinced that you've actually learned something from that experience and you've worked out how that would make you a good student as well. And also don't undermine yourself with inappropriate language. And that also goes for humour. Occasionally we do get students who try to inject a bit of humour into the application, which is a very noble thing to do, but it can be quite a difficult thing to do successfully because you're sending off an application to someone that you've never met before. There's lots of people in universities with not much of a sense of humour, so please do tread with caution and make sure that you have other people to read your work to make sure that you're not going to be misinterpreted. So have lots of other people with fresh eyes to read your work and to give you some feedback on it. And as I said before, it's really important that you use all of your own work because anti-plagiarism software goes through every single application. Okay, so if there's more than, I think about a 10 to 15% similarity with a personal statement that's already been submitted elsewhere, it gets flagged and it gets pulled out and looked at by UCAS. and then they can decide whether it's actually been plagiarised or not. And if it is the case, then you, the student, will be told, universities will be told, and your school will be told as well. Because we do know that every year people tend to steal ideas, and I put a few of those on the screen. The UCAS supplied this with us for a few years ago, that there are quite a few quotes and examples which lots of people ended up using. So even perhaps if it's not enough similarity for you to be pulled for plagiarism, it's enough to not impress us anyway. We'll see the same quotes over and over again. So we're not going to be impressed by that. So make sure any examples that you use are your own. And don't just put in a quote just to end it off nicely without telling us why or what that quote means to you. So anything that you put inside your personal statement, make sure that it has a purpose to it and that you've talked about why this particular incident or thing that you've read has some sort of meaning and influenced your decision, and perhaps would influence your success in actually being a student later on too. So that's what your application side is. That's what you need to do. So you need to fill out that application form, write your personal statement, and perhaps liaise with the person putting the reference together. Once that's all done, it all gets entered onto that UCAS application form and submitted. We then receive it in universities. As I've said many times, what we're looking for in individual students can vary quite a lot, but essentially we're looking for students who are going to understand what that course is about, will make good professionals if it's a vocational course, and has the right skills and experiences to be successful on that course. Now, universities get assessed on all sorts of different things with league tables and so forth, and quite often one of those things that gets assessed is the completion rate. So those of us from universities with like sort of good reputations, we want to be really sure that we're admitting students that are going to be successful on our courses, because it then will reflect on our reputations later on. And as I said earlier on in the presentation, there's all sorts of things we can look for as part of the admissions process. So we'll look at your academic history, your skills, perhaps meet you at an interview, look at additional work, look at your personal statement, look at your academic reference as well, to decide whether we think that we're a good match for one another. So we then need to make that decision. So the types of offers and decisions that we can make at universities are a conditional offer. So we will say, if you get, say, 1A and 2 Bs and at least a B in maths, you can come onto our course. So you know where you stand. So you know what you need to work hard to get once those results come out in August. So that's what a conditional offer will tell you, what the condition of the offer is. An unconditional offer is essentially saying, yes, we'll take you. Traditionally, an unconditional offer has only been reserved for students who perhaps they're taking a year out. They got all their results last year, so it's all been confirmed. So everyone knows where they stand. There's been a few universities in recent years give unconditional offers to students who've not yet sat their exams. We certainly don't do that at Liverpool. If you do get an unconditional offer and you've not yet done your exams, still try not to let that to sway your decision, because universities are doing that to try to sway your decision, to make you choose them. So make sure you choose the right course for you. So don't let that sort of sway you, and still work really hard towards your results. The third option, of course, is a decline. So perhaps you've applied for a course that you don't have the right qualifications for, or perhaps you do have all the minimum requirements, but there's other people who've done better than yourself. But hopefully, when you've applied for those 5 courses, perhaps you get 5 offers back. As I said earlier, you can't keep hold of all 5. So that's that May, June, July time when you have to choose which is your firm choice, your first choice, and which is your insurance, your second choice. So you need to be happy to go to either of those. But what happens behind the scenes is that in universities, we get your results a little bit before you do, so that we have time to do the admin. So your firm choice, your first choice university will receive your results first. We'll have a look to see if you got what we were asking for. And if you did, then we simply confirm your place. If for whatever reason we can't confirm your place because you didn't meet the terms of the offer and we feel that you're not a good match for us, you'll automatically behind the scenes drop to your insurance choice. And I did see someone asked a question about how to choose your insurance choice. And what you should do there, so yes, it should still be a course that you're still interested in doing, but it should have a slightly lower grade requirement than your firm choice. because if you didn't get into your firm choice with your results and your insurance choice is exactly the same requirements, there's a chance that they won't take you either. So use your insurance choice as a safety net. So perhaps a grade lower, so that if you don't get into your first one, your second one will actually catch you. Now, if for whatever reason your second choice, your insurance choice, also can't take you, don't despair. It doesn't mean that you'll never go to university. It simply means that you're not currently holding an offer. But what you'll need to do then is, via a process called clearing, contact universities directly to see if they have any spaces and ask for what grades they're asking for and to see how to apply. So quite often there'll either be an online form you need to complete where you put all of your what course you're interested in and you put down what your qualifications and results are so the university can then assess it, or perhaps there might be a call centre that you need to bring in as well. So there's always that extra check as opportunity later as well. So you have your first choice, your firm choice, your insurance choice will hopefully catch you. If not, clearing is also another option for you. But just as a word of caution with clearing, the really popular courses will often not have any spaces left, or they will go very, very quickly on results day. So just in summary here, I do urge you to be aware of when all your deadlines are so that you allow yourself enough time to do the research so that you're choosing a course that you're going to be interested in. Perhaps it will set you up for your dream career, and make sure that it's going to be the right place, the right environment for you as well. So attend open days and events and so forth as well. Spend lots of time writing your application. Make sure you're including the information that we actually want to see in your personal statement. Speak to your tutors as well for advice about where to go, what to write and so forth. But in the end, the decision needs to be your own. Okay, you're going to be the one that's going to be doing those assignments, doing those exams, perhaps doing a study abroad year or a work placement. You want to make sure that it's really the right decision for you. So that's all of my presentation slides now. So I think we'll go over to our question time. So we've got about 18 minutes or so time. So happy to have a go at any common questions that people might have.
We've got about 80 minutes and roughly 18 questions, so this could work out quite well. I'll start with them in the order that they're asked, so we'll kind of like hark our memory back a little to the beginning. Ahmed asked whether you have to have work experience before a degree.
Well, for some courses you will do. So for some courses it will be quite important and it will be part of the admissions requirements. So an easy example, and I think I mentioned it at the time, for veterinary at Liverpool, we think it's crucial that you've had experience with animals before actually going on a course, trying to treat animals. So we'll, on our website, we sort of put a lot of detail about how much time, what sort of things you need to have done as well. But quite often for those vocational type courses, you might need to have some sort of experience, whether it's directly related to that profession or something where you can pick up the right sort of skills that you can then transfer to being useful in that profession. Lots of courses, though, you don't need to. You simply have to have a genuine interest. So perhaps doing some extra reading or research, that could be enough. So quite often you don't have to have experience of going on excavations, for example, to come and be an archaeologist, because we know that lots of students will have no idea how to get that experience and the opportunities might be limited. So we simply want to have people who have an interest and can demonstrate their interest in that subject rather than have actually done it practically perhaps in beforehand. So check university websites to see what they say.
Wonderful, thank you. Adam specifically asked, what fields does Liverpool specialise in?
Well, we're a very large university, so we don't have just one specialism. So you will find some universities are quite small and they only focus on perhaps clinical areas. But then universities like ourselves, Manchester, Birmingham, we offer a very broad range of different subject areas. So if I was to pinpoint a few of the ones that I get asked about perhaps more often by students, medicine, dentistry, veterinary, of course, are always up there, but things like law are very popular, politics, oceanography, because it's quite an unusual one. We do get asked about that sort of thing as well. But we offer a very broad range of different sort of engineering courses, music, very, very broad range. So I'd advise, if you're interested in Liverpool, come onto our website and perhaps book onto an open day as well.
Wonderful, thank you. This was from Sarah when it was around application as well. do you have to have an interview for university?
For some courses you will do. So I believe that most Oxford and Cambridge courses will interview for you, but if you are interested in Oxford, certainly go to a special Oxford talk. That's not my specialism. If it's a course that's got a particular vocation to it, so especially those around healthcare, quite often they will have an interview because on paper you might look like an ideal candidate, but we want to actually meet you as well, because having that sort of personal interaction with people is also really crucial for your career. At Liverpool, we don't have necessarily auditions for things like music. We'll certainly invite you for an information day in there. So there'll be all sorts of different things that universities could ask and perhaps invite you either for a formal interview or perhaps just an opportunity for you to come onto campus, ask questions, and then it's almost a two-way process. We can work out if you, the student, are the right person for us, but also crucially, students can work out whether our course is the right thing for them as well. So it might be a crucial part of the application, or it could be just a FYI type session.
Okay, brilliant. You actually mentioned there, you touched on Oxford and Cambridge, which leads me to a question that Adam asked. Out of curiosity, why are Oxford and Cambridge deadlines earlier in October?
Oh, well, I've never worked at Oxford or Cambridge, so I can't give you a solid answer on that. But my guess, because of course those clinical medicine, dentistry and veterinary are also in that October category. My guess, and I do emphasize guess, is that because the application process certainly involves more steps than lots of other courses do, it might be that they need additional time in order to do that, to gather in additional test results. So, for example, UCAT is what we ask for medicine and dentistry at Liverpool. For something like vets, we ask for lots of work experience, so students have to complete an additional form to detail all of those sorts of information in there. So my guess is that it's simply because they're a little bit more complicated, the admissions process, but I'd certainly direct the Oxbridge question to someone from one of those universities rather than just taking my guess as in a solid answer.
It's an educated guess, though, Louise. Right then, Rach says, what's the best way to decide between a campus or city university?
Oh, visiting is probably the best one to get a feel for it. So you'll find, so for those that perhaps have a bit of a fuzzy idea about what those two terms mean, a campus university will tend to have all its buildings next door to one another. So probably quite like your school. So you'll have might even be a fence or gardens that kind of separates you from everything else. So you've got an identifiable space. Whereas a city university tends to not have that. It might have buildings scattered across the city area. So they might be shops and businesses. So there's a real mixture of people sort of walking past one another. Then you will have some universities that are a bit of both. So we at Liverpool are a bit of both. So the picture you can see on the screen is the centre of our campus. And there are a couple of roads because it's a very large campus, but we're only a 10-minute walk from where all the shops and things start in Liverpool City. So we've got a campus with some accommodation on site and social stuff. So you've got that sort of community feel, which is what a campus university will give you. But you've got the city of Liverpool just on the doorstep. So you've got those options of going into town as well. So going and visiting, that will give you a good sense of which one is the right environment.
Brilliant. Leads me nicely to a question that's actually about you.
Okay.
Poppy said, which uni did you go to and what were your reasons for that?
Right. I actually did my first university degree abroad. My family had emigrated. So I just went to University of Adelaide. That's where I did my first university degree. Interestingly, there they don't really have a culture of moving far from home, so you tend to just go to your local university. So I did stay at home for that one, but then I then moved back to England, and then I also did some postgraduate work, which I did at the University of Leicester because they specialised in the area that I wanted to particularly do. So the things that should really influence you is if you want to stay at home or not. So that influenced my first one, but then I wanted to move back to England. So that kind of influenced my later decisions there as well. And also that place had a good reputation for where you wanted to actually study. And then my third stop was actually in Liverpool because I think it's a fantastic city to be in as well. So you have to, when you're making your options, you need to get that balance right of what's the right place for you? Do they offer the right subject? And also, will I enjoy living there?
Okay, that's brilliant. On the subject of Liverpool, Harry said, how hard is it to find a part-time job in Liverpool?
Not hard at all. Because we're quite a large university, and as I said, our campus is right next door to the city, so you can just walk 10 minutes into town. It's very easy to get to all the shops and bars and cafes. There's a very thriving sort of cultural heritage sector in Liverpool as well, lots of tourism. So there's lots of sort of part-time jobs available. We also have I thought there'd only be one Premier League club next season, but there are still going to be two. But both the football clubs employ lots of students as well. So I actually work at Liverpool Football Club too. And there's lots of students who work there as either stewards or in catering. There's lots of opportunities for part-time work, but also, and I'd give this advice for wherever people tend to go to, check for jobs on university campuses as well, because quite often we employ students on open days to deliver talks, and we have school visits as well. We have to employ people to work in our shops and cafes as well. So quite often universities themselves employ lots of students as well. So definitely make a beeline for the careers teams in universities to find out about different options.
Brilliant, great advice there. Christian says, are Russell Group unis more expensive to go to?
Not generally, no. Because at the moment there is essentially a limit put on what the maximum fees are, and that's regardless of which type of university, whether you're a Russell Group university or a newer type university. So quite often they will cost the same. What's more likely to impact your finances is where they're located. So the city perhaps they're located. So it might not necessarily be a big difference in the tuition fee. It could be your living expenses that have a bit of a difference there.
Brilliant, thank you. Georgie asked a different question. If I do a degree apprenticeship with you, would I be able to stay in your accommodation?
Well, we don't offer degree apprenticeships at Liverpool. The closest we have some like industry placements. So for things like business and engineering, for example, they're the easy examples where you have a year out an industry placement where you can do that either locally, nationally, or sometimes even internationally as well. So you probably need to double check with places that do degree apprenticeships to check what their rules are there.
That's good to know. Right then, Annie asked a question around insurance choices.
Yeah.
To be honest, actually, you answered this already. So Annie said, can you give advice on how to pick an insurance choice? Should it be the one with lower entry requirements? Well, actually, you covered that. Yes, it should. Okay.
It's a bit of a misunderstanding. Sometimes students do get it confused and they think, well, my favourite one is that one, but my insurance choice is like my second favourite, but not look at the grade reduction, because what happens is if you do get into your first choice university, your insurance choice disappears. Not all students realise that. They think that they can hold on to both of them and then make a decision on results day. But actually what happens is if you do get into your firm choice university, your insurance offer disappears. So that position is no longer held for you. So we do quite often get students come back to us to say, well, I got into my other place, but actually I really do want to come to you. Do you still have any space? We might be able to accommodate you if there are any places through clearing, which I mentioned in passing as part of it. So if there is space, we might be able to help you and to reinstate the offer, but that's not always the case. And especially for those really popular courses, we might not be able to give you a second offer. So choose that insurance one wisely. So you will go to the first one first, and the second one is only used if you don't get into the first choice.
Okay. On this same topic, actually, Rach said, if you have an unconditional offer, does it still need to be a first or insurance choice, or can you have it as another backup?
I think you'd not need to double check the terms of the university that's making that, because we don't do that at Liverpool at all. I know that some universities have put that as a condition where in order to take this unconditional offer, they have to put them as number one. So do double check the small print and try not to let that sway your decision about whether to put someone first or second or to choose them at all. In the long run, the course itself needs to be the right one for the student. So try not to let the universities sway your decision by making you feel loved, that, oh no, they really want me, that's why they give me an unconditional offer. Unfortunately, that's probably not quite the case. They're hoping to sway your decision to make, and you choose them. So double check the small print to find out if you do need to put it first. But quite often, I think you do.
Okay, brilliant. There's a question here about plagiarism. Obviously, we spoke about that and how, we don't do it. Ryan says, can you give any tips to avoid it? I guess what Ryan means there is like accidentally, writing something that might match what somebody else has written. How do you avoid that?
Yeah, well, it could be that you do use the same quote or the same book or play or case study or experiment results as someone else. But that's where it's really important that you don't just randomly drop in a quote or drop in an example without then discussing it in your own words. So if by chance you do use the same like philosophy quote in your personal statement, the conclusions that you've drawn from that and why you're including it, what you tell us about why you're including that will be unique to you. So that's why it's not if there's 1% similarity, you're out. There is a bit of leeway, flexibility there. So if there is quite a bit, it will be pulled and it will be looked at and be sort of judged. So if you do include anything at all that's not your own original words, make sure you then discuss that so that we understand why you're putting this example in. And then it makes it clear that you've engaged with that matter and you've actually thought about it. And then it does become unique to yourself.
Wonderful. Very wise words there. Right, then we've got about 4 minutes left and 4 questions. 3 of those around personal statements. Okay. Poppy says, what happens if you submit your personal statement but remember something important to add afterwards?
Well, once it's been sent, it's kind of gone in that regards. So if you think there's something absolutely crucial, what you can do is contact universities directly. And occasionally, very occasionally, this can also be used is if you're applying for something that is completely unrelated to everything else you've applied for, you can contact universities directly to say, will they accept another personal statement? But that's entirely up to the university's discretion about whether they will accept it or not. So try to wait until you've actually got everything completed, everything checked, advice from other people before you submit it. But if there are any sort of changes or things like that, that's really important, that must be included, contact the universities and have a discussion with them.
Okay, wonderful. Right then, this is a question again around personal statements, and I guess it's assuming that an individual is applying to widely different courses, because they've said, how can you write about what skills you have for the course if your course options are very different?
That's it's a very difficult thing. It's going to be a very difficult thing to do successfully. So that's why my sort of top bit of advice to try to avoid that is to do your research early. So you've worked out what it is you do want to apply for, so that you are writing about why you want to study that particular subject area. Now, if you're applying for perhaps some joint courses, so perhaps the joint courses, perhaps that you're doing a major and a minor, so mainly one subject with a little bit of something else, contact the universities to see if they want you to talk about that other little bit of extra subject in the personal statement. It could be that they say, don't worry about it. So that might make it a bit simpler for you. So if you're doing any major and minors in there, check the university to see whether you have to talk about both subject areas or not. That might help.
Okay, brilliant. Sarah asked, do universities let you speak direct to students on the course that I'm interested in?
Yes, absolutely. There's lots of websites that you can go to. So I know they're definitely linked through the UCAS website. And if you go onto the University of Liverpool website, there's little pop-ups that come up. So if you're looking at the different our university degree program pages, you'll get little pop-ups where it's like, do you want to send a message to a current student who's doing this subject? So we have a section on our website, which is like a student chat area. And I think quite a few other universities do as well. There's a company called UniBuddy. So they have quite a lot of universities utilize them in order to offer sort of chat rooms and things like that. So you can speak to students. And of course, in-person open days are a fantastic opportunity as seek students to be.
Wonderful, thank you. And I've just got one final question, and to be honest with you, it's quite difficult to answer quickly, but I think we do need to just mention it. Josie says, how does the clearing process work? I guess we could do a whole session on this, but assuming that you have to go through it, can you just summarize kind of what someone would have to do?
Yeah, so clearing exists for anyone who, for whatever reason, doesn't have a place at university, whether they didn't get into their firm insurance or perhaps they didn't apply at all beforehand and suddenly thought, oh, my results are not too bad, I might apply to university now. In that case, instead of applying through the UCAS form, you have to apply directly to universities, so that makes it a little bit more complicated. So you have to go onto individual university websites. We will advertise what spaces we have and exactly what grades we're asking for and how to apply. So what we do at Liverpool is we have our website advertising any courses that we have and what we're asking for, and we have an online form that students fill in with all their contact details, what their confirmed results are, and what courses they're interested in applying to. We then receive that form, and then we'll get back to the student about whether we can give them an offer. Perhaps we need to do an interview over the phone or something like that with them, perhaps ask them to submit a portfolio or something. But the thing to important that's remember with clearing is that you're only going to be getting essentially the leftover places. So there's a danger of, if you've not applied to university at all beforehand, you've got limited options in there. So popular courses, so medicine, dentistry, veterinary, you cannot apply for those. We've never been able to apply for those through clearing at Liverpool, and I think very few other places either. Quite often business courses might be really full or have very limited places, and it can vary a little bit year on year. So for clearing, they need to have all of their confirmed results in front of them so that they can either put them into the form on the website and then have them perhaps to speak to someone directly as well, just so that we know exactly what it is the student has got, and then we can judge whether they think they might be the right student for us. But it is a first come, first serve process. So universities like Liverpool, we tend to have very few places, and we're often closed for clearing by the end of that first day on results day. Some other universities might be open for a couple of weeks, perhaps they're not quite as popular, but really in-demand courses will have very few places for clearing.
Okay, wonderful. What a brilliant session. Thank you so much. I think this is my kind of cue to start to wrap everything up. I'd like to thank everybody that's joined the session. There's still over 400 of you here, which is awesome. And so many questions asked. I hope that they've all been answered. I'm sure they have. Louise, you've done a brilliant job. Thank you. Lovely presentation. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I think that it's just my opportunity to say University Week is continuing tomorrow. This has been the last session of today. I think it's been a wonderful session to end on. Thank you to everybody here, to Louise, the University of Liverpool. And from me, it's goodbye until tomorrow.